Hey there, YouTubers! This is Kevin from Survivor Super Fun Time Show. And I've noticed in the community, the Survivor fan community online, things have gotten a little spicy lately among some of the castaways of Survivor 47 and also the fans. The fans are starting to ramp up a little bit. So I thought this would be the perfect time to really go back to the roots of why this channel exists in the first place, which is to try to get rid of some of the negativity, some of the toxicity in the fandom, and even among the players. Because it's a real game. A lot of this stuff really affected the people, and it's still affecting the people that play the game. Even if they made peace with what happened in their own experience while they were there, watching it live is a whole different deal. They're seeing confessionals they didn't see. They're seeing looks from hugs that they didn't know even happened in the first place. Just like, maybe like Gabe's when he hugged Rachel this past episode. So there's very real things that are occurring and playing out on screen that we honestly don't know how it's affecting people, but we do know it's getting a little bit spicier right now. So I thought I would make a video and I would just do all positive. We're only going to do all positive on this one, baby. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through every castaway up to this point, and I'm going to say some nice things about them. I'm going to say some of my favorite things and just positive messages about every single one of them from 1 through 18 so that they can hear, yes, in fact, you are doing very well. You did very well, and you're going to continue to do really well. So we have to start off with John Lovett. Immediately, I have to say for John, I've never listened to the podcast, and that's a big deal. I'm not a podcast guy. However, John, oh my God, he is one of the funniest people I've ever seen come on the show. There's people who just have a way with words, and admittedly in the new era, they kind of fit in the same archetype. Like Zach Wertenberger from 42. Really funny, just like John. Brandon Donlin from 45. Really, really funny. And I think it's unique people like that who are actually really incredibly quick-witted and funny in a way that I wish I was. In a way that, in my mind, I think I am. But when I see them do it, I'm like, oh my God, that's a proper joke. Get them in a room with anyone, and they are going to get people to laugh their heads off with minimal effort. And John, it didn't work out in the game. That's fine. But that just means for the rest of your life, you're going to have this ability that not many other people have. Next up is TK from the Tuku tribe. This guy, big smile, big energy, absolutely tons of energy. He looks like a total go-getter. He puts out plans. He's ready to attack it and ready to go for it. I mean, it makes sense as an athlete and now as an athletic marketer. I mean, he's all about trying to frame things right, trying to get the best result he possibly can, even if sometimes, maybe it's a little too aggressive. But that's what happens sometimes in life. Sometimes it calls for that. The problem is in Survivor, it's, there's a lot of different things that can go wrong. In a different game, he's probably the winner 90 out of 100 times. But it just didn't work out this time around, but he still kept smiling. He still kept it real. He still tried to do a really awesome thing and play the game ultimately. So TK, you athletic beast, love seeing you in the game. Aysha, our hap Aysha. Now going into the game, definitely one of the biggest favorites around, and a lot of people were devastated when she was kicked out of the game. Preseason, I thought she was a lock to go really far, at least based on potential. There's a bunch of people in the past to specifically cite New Era that I thought were in the same boat, like Helen Lee at 44. As soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, she's good to go. Jessica from 46, she's going around. She's going to last forever. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way. Aysha knew all the rules, knew all the deal. It looks like she put in a lot of work. She's a wonderful human being, it seems. Got a good personality. It just didn't fall her way. But other than it just not falling her way in the game, she's got everything else you could want in life. She's a great young woman, and I think having her on the show and having her part of the community is ultimately a net positive in a huge way for fans out there. So I'm really glad Aysha was able to use this experience. Kishan, obviously super brilliant, falling into kind of like a grouping like a Stephen Fishback, who's kind of funny. There's a little bit of sass in there, some serious brilliance. And in his own gameplay, maybe he overplayed it a little bit, but really he was the first one to give us some serious dynamic strategy that was really interesting. I loved having him on screen. When he got voted out, I loved it, but not because of him. It's more so just because what he did relayed into kind of a big overarching story into the game with Rome and a shock and a blindside, which is really fun. But ultimately, Guy is super brilliant, and he understood there were gaps and there were people who could play against one another. Unfortunately, there was just advantages that ended up screwing things up, and Genevieve kind of put her nose in there. But ultimately, Kishan had all the tools to go further in the game. Didn't work out, but that's okay. He's still going to be super successful in life. He's really funny. He seemed funny. Seemed really, really smart. And I can only say positive things about Kishan. Anika, dear Anika. I love Anika. Even though if you watch my reviews, I was like, yep, Anika's doomed. Anika's doomed. It's not because I hate Anika or I want Anika to go anywhere. It's just I'm now watching Survivor for such a long time and I guess commentating on it now. I feel like I can read the tea leaves a little bit. And I was just like, I know Anika's gonna leave. But part of the reason why I thought Anika was gonna leave is because she has everything you could want in being a young woman. I mean, she's absolutely incredibly beautiful, incredibly intelligent, really funny, and the big thing is she knows what she wants, no matter what. Like she's good at instructing you on things, like she was doing with Sam during some of the challenges. It's not like she's just talking, squawking, and nothing of substance is coming out. No, I mean she's like a project manager to the core. I mean, she's going to be incredibly successful in everything she does in life as long as she cares about it. And I think that's very clear. And that's why she ended up meeting her end in Survivor, because she honestly is just too much of a bulldozer badass in life. And I think that's really cool. Rome, 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 Rome. What a personality. I mean, no matter what anyone says about Rome, he went out there and he was Rome. Clearly, I mean, he's a host and he did a lot of like up in your face commentary about really everything, and to maybe some harm in his game. I think it was for the most part a benefit because we as fans got to learn about his personality. He had a nose for idols. I mean, he is the guy. If you need to get an advantage, he's going to get it. He's the kind of guy who has a horseshoe just completely up his ass in trying to do anything, because you see how, interactions, some people don't quite understand it, but he still ends up usually winning out in the end. Obviously, it didn't work out this in a social game, but in many other competitions, I'm sure he does absolutely great because he believes in himself, which is one of the biggest traits a lot of people do not have, to their own detriment. He believes in himself and he has ability. So I think that's a lot of great stuff about Rome. The recently departed Tiyanna. Tiyanna, you lion mane hair, beautiful, intelligent, athletic, incredibly strategic woman. You did so many things in the game, I think, correct. I think early on, abandoning TK was really smart. I think the way you go about talking to other players in the game, you're guarded pretty much the whole time. You could see it on your face, which I think is good for Survivor, ultimately. I think there's a lot of pride in who you are, where you come from, what you represent. I think is really amazing. And I think that you have had a lot of awesome experiences. I mean, you are a flight attendant, so you're able to go around the world and see different things and meet different people. And you seem to be really grateful for all of the love that's given back to you because you clearly have a huge heart to give back to other people. So I think that's really unfortunate that you're out of the game sooner than later, but I appreciate the impact that you've had. And when you left and you were sad about it, it made me sad for it. So that really sucked. Next up, Andy. Boy, what a roller coaster it's been for Andy. Going into the season, I was like, oh, dude, I'm rooting for Andy. No question. I'm always into the long-haired guys because I used to have long hair, and I'm like, solidarity, for the long-haired guys. And I saw that he was basically a giant nerd. I appreciate that. I think if anyone's been authentically themselves to the point of it being a detriment in the game at certain points, Andy's near the top of that list, if not the top. But I think that's good because now we're seeing how it becomes a major positive. I mean, ultimately, people try to say hide some traits, but Andy's not. He's being who he is. And I think he's showing that he's really smart, that he is nerdy. He's good to get along with people. And it, at times, is in the game, at least, he's a little sloppy with things, or even in his interactions with people. Maybe, but there's also an incredible charm in being sloppy at times. But at the same time, Andy's got a lot going for him. He's in great shape. He's got a good job. I saw a recent photo of him and maybe a girlfriend. They were dressed as like Anakin and Padme from Star Wars, which I love. He's living his life, and I think that's really awesome. And I think he's got a lot of potential in the game. He knows that he's in the bottom of one alliance, and he's looking for other alliance partners. So you could say whatever you want about maybe him being like a sloppy player or maybe not totally picking up on things at times, but he's definitely understanding where he's at in the game and when he needs to maneuver. And there are a ton of players that do not understand that. So Andy is killing it. Next is Caroline of the Tuku tribe. I know going into the season, I didn't know what to think of Caroline. I think I was comparing her a little bit to Emily Flippin, but like in the first half, Emily Flippin, and not the second half, Emily Flippin, which is the worst Emily Flippin. But what I've learned is there's maybe some truth to that, but she's incredibly great at speaking with people. She's really good at navigating difficult conversations. She doesn't get too caught up into details. She knows how to dance around these conversations and seem really genuine, even if, she's not. I don't know. But it seems like she really feels for people. She linked up with someone like Sue, which is, I think, a great idea. She seems to have the best interest of people around her. I mean, after Tiyanna's exit, the sadness in her face, knowing that she had a big hand in getting rid of this person that she cares about, I thought was I fell for that again. I think she's smart. I think she's gorgeous. She seems to be really athletic, and she seems like she has really a lot of interest in trying to succeed in this game in a very strategic way, more than other people. And I'm super curious to see how it shakes out for her, but I can only say just awesome things about her. Teeny's the next one. Going into the season, I was not sold on Teeny. But remember, this is the Entertainment Weekly article, is really what I base most of my thoughts on, and that is practically nothing to go off of, truthfully. I thought, maybe a Teeny, once I saw the first episode and she said, like, hey, I know you from RHAP to Asia. I said, oh, God, she's going to be like a fan who just latches on and ends up getting disposed by Asia. Not the case at all. Teeny showed autonomy since the beginning of the game, showed at episode 3 that she was willing to get rid of Asia because Asia wasn't willing to do the logical thing at that time. And that's where I was like, okay, everyone wants to talk to Teeny, everyone wants to work with Teeny, and Teeny's willing to cut people. So as a game player, Teeny is top tier. Teeny top tier. And I cannot deny that at all. And even when she was in peril at the journey, all the people wanted to talk to her to get the ambulance. Andy and Caroline were like, oh yeah, I love Teeny. Caroline later on at the little feast said, I love Teeny and feel really good about Teeny. There is no one who feels bad about Teeny. And that's because Teeny has a way of communicating with people that I think makes you feel comfortable. There are a few players that have really done that very well in the new era, and of course all time, but in the new era. And Teeny's about as good as it gets. I mean, there's only so many people that can sit there and talk to you and work through these difficult situations. Like, for example, early in the game, when Rome found the key to a box and he told Teeny, but then Teeny went and brought Kishan to the box and Rome caught them. Somehow Teeny didn't get in trouble. Like, that's usually a game-ending move if Rome catches you. But it didn't happen because Teeny worked around it. And that speaks to Teeny's incredible ability to work with people, be strategic, and get around things. And I was really impressed, and I continue to be really impressed. And in fact, I think Teeny right now is the front runner to win the game. Now, that could change, but there's just so many traits off the charts for Survivor that Teeny is nailing right now. So I can only say great things. Gabe's gone balls to the wall in this game up to this point. And, he's been a physical threat. He's tried to make it really entertaining. He's gotten an idol. He's roped in. He's had a plan and executed it. He tried to bring in Sue right away because he had a plan to get an older woman, or the oldest woman, a 45-year-old, and get him in his alliance and move forward in that way because he sees these alliances of younger males and older women, like Denise and Malcolm from Survivor Philippines, Charlie and Maria from 46. And try to move forward in that way, which I think is brilliant. Will it work out long term? I'm not so sure about that, but it has gotten him up to this point, to the point where Tiyanna just went instead of him. So it seems to be benefiting him. I think as a viewer at home, much like a Rome or a Q from 46, or even like Bruce from 45, there's these folks that have been edited as kind of like a villain, but it makes it really entertaining. So I appreciate Gabe laying it all out there to be like on the Mount Rushmore of Survivor New Era, and maybe to detriment to his game in the end. But as a viewer, I have enjoyed it. It's been really entertaining, and I love it. So I hope Gabe keeps it up. Hopefully he does, as long as he's still in the game. I don't know how long that'll be, but I think ultimately, he's a vocal guy. He's got a lot of great attributes, and he's going to continue to do well in the game, at least for the next couple votes, with, hope that he makes it to the end. Genevieve. Where the hell did Genevieve come from? This absolutely stunning, like, corporate lawyer, middle-aged woman who, on paper, you're like, oh, she can absolutely kick ass in this game. And she wasn't around for like 3 episodes. We're like, what? We're like, are we ever going to know anything about Genevieve? She's being purpled. Is she going to be kicked out of the game? No. She came alive for the Kishan vote, and now I can't get enough of Genevieve. I think Genevieve, based on who they're making alliances with, it seems like she can get to the end. She can even win the game. And I just can't get enough. I mean, she's athletic. She helped bring immunity to her team last episode. She's really brilliant. She's adept to making new alliances. She lost Rome, her number 1, and is already trying to scoop up Andy, which is a brilliant idea. I mean, everything about her screams she could potentially win the game. She's got tools to win the game, and I think she can. She's a badass. She's a badass with a smile, and I love that. So I think it's going to end up going well for her, and I'm really glad that we've gotten to learn more about her, because I was afraid we weren't. Kyle Ostwald, the dear sweet baby Kyle, the Shaggy lookalike, or the Ian Rosenberger doppelganger. I love Kyle. Kyle's really awesome. As a game player, I think he's fine. It seems like, he's been a little bit of a passenger to some degree up to this point, but his votes have been significant too. Like this last time around, whether or not he swung one way or the other, it could have had big ramifications. It didn't, but it could have. And obviously he's been an immunity threat. He's the only one who's worn the immunity necklace up to this point. He's been an underrated challenge beast, which I think is very interesting that we're seeing come to fruition right now during the individual portion of the game. And ultimately, he's had so many life experiences that probably have made this experience of Survivor so much easier for him than other people. There's clearly a lot of grace in the way he speaks with people. There's a lot of just base level, old school personality, like a Keith Nail or something like that, where he just expects decency from people, and that's how he wants to play the game and how he desires to play the game. And obviously, he's going to have to lie at some point, and I guess he technically already has. And he's going to have to do some backstabby things if he wants to win the game. But ultimately, Kyle has shown major heart in this kind of game where sometimes it is really frowned upon or considered to be really naive to have a big heart. So I love that for Kyle, and I'm very glad that he is a part of this season. Next up is Sue. I bust on Sue a lot for saying she's 45 years old when she's really 58. I mean, obviously, like, it's a joke because usually you can kind of tell the difference. She's not 45, but she's absolutely stunning. She's gorgeous. Like, her body's in crazy shape because she's worked really hard at it. Clearly, she did as much prep time as she could for Survivor to be built practically like a fire hydrant, ready to take on anyone. You can't beast her up. She looks great. Absolutely gorgeous woman who definitely has been playing with her heart in a pretty big way. I think she's taken risks, which is really important to win in New Era Survivor. She's made alliances with good people. She's made alliances with people who would be good shields. She's navigated tough environments in the past. She talks about having a flight school. And obviously, if you're going to be in that kind of environment, it's kind of a macho environment. And being, the feminine woman that she is, sometimes it can be difficult to navigate those waters. And Survivor the same way. There could be a really macho environment in that way. And I think she's done really well at it. And number one trait that I have going for her right now is she shuts her mouth about advantages. Yes, Caroline knows about her idol, but she didn't tell Caroline about it. Everyone figured it out that there was paint somewhere, and Caroline's the only one who was like, oh, yeah, that's probably Sue. And maybe Tiyanna did, but Tiyanna got voted out, so it's fine. So Sue has a lot of traits that are going her way. I think she has great potential to get to the final 3. Winning the final 3, it would probably take 1 or 2 pretty huge moves for her, but there's a lot of game left. So there's a lot of potential left there for her to still make some serious headway in the game. But ultimately, I think Sue is a very interesting addition to the season, and I think she's gonna do well. Sam from the Gata tribe. Going into the season, I made it pretty clear. I said Sam will either do really well or he's gonna be the first boot because I looked at the makeup of Gata and I was like, I don't know if he's gonna fit in because I again from Entertainment Weekly, which doesn't give you much description. I was like, okay, well he's definitely got the air of an alpha male, and I think that could work really well. You could either be, like Andrew Savage, or you could be like Garrett from Survivor Kagayan, and they want you gone right away, despite being an alpha male. I wasn't sure which way it was going to go for Sam, but clearly Sam is the glue guy that he mentioned. He said, I want to be the glue guy, and he is. And I love that. I think he's been all of this like alpha male, strong, dependent, solid, but he's also been someone that's really nurtured and catered to the people around him for the most part. I think it's important. He's able to do things he didn't like with a smile. When, he wanted to kill the chickens and Sierra didn't want to, he made jokes about how they had to, basically get their neck snapped, but he didn't do it. And it was one of those ways that, you're beguiling to try to win people over. And, I think he does it really well to the point where he's now considered the top target at the merge. Now, he's going to have to do some work in order to get to the end of the game. I think he's got all the ability to win the game. He's strong, he's mentally tough, he understands that it's going to suck, and he's okay to push through that. I mean, he's got every attribute. He's got the best set of attributes to win this game right now, in my opinion. However, he's also got bigger hurdles than other people. So I can only hope this is going to go well. The good news is, I think even if Sam loses, he gets out at like 5 or 4. I think he'll leave the game with a smile on his face, wishing that he had won because he's a big competitor. But at the same time, he'll remember it is just a game. There are more important things in life. And he's going to feel pretty much like $1,000,000 anyway in the end. So that's something that you really can't buy. And I think it's great for Sam, and I hope he does really well. Rachel. Rachel is someone, oh my gosh, going into the season, I pegged her as like somewhere in the middle of the game as where she would finish, and that's because she clearly has like a really great personality. She's smart, she's pretty, she's got just an awesome ability to make puzzles. I wasn't sure that would be the case, but early on, I was like, this witty, quirky girl, she is going to do so well in the game. And it looks like right now she's faced some serious, down points after the vote of Anika. That didn't go well. After this tribal council where there was the draw where she ended up with Tuku. I mean, God, if it wasn't for that advantage, she possibly would have been kicked out of the game. And she's taken it really well. She's rolling with the punches in a pretty big way and is mentally tough. I mean, there's also innovation in Rachel. Now, to be fair, I thought it was obvious that they couldn't take the rice in that one immunity challenge, but good for her for trying, because apparently people haven't tried before to steal rice from a challenge when you're hungry. I can't believe it, but she did. She's the one. So you can definitely point to innovation toward Rachel in that way. No matter what, she's going to leave a mark on the game just for that alone. And I think that's a really cool thing to be able to say. Add in the fact that she has puzzle prowess, and now she is on a path to get to the final 5, roughly. I think Rachel's got a lot of good in store, and I mean, I'm excited to see more of her humorous self still in the game. Saul. I love Saul. Saul, I always call him Jedi Master Saul because, there's a Jedi in the latest Star Wars named Saul. And of course, Survivor 47, Saul comes up. I love this guy. Ever since the beginning of the game, he's just been a giant teddy bear. He's been fun. He's felt really relatable, but he's felt really edgy at the same time. Like, he's the kind of dude I would love to hang out with and just have a drink with. Now, there's a lot of people, but he seems like an easy one. Like, he'd be sitting at the table, maybe be a little more low-key. He would make 1 or 2 little jokes there, and then I feel like I could engage in a conversation and start to slowly build a rapport. Whereas some other people on the cast maybe are more like, with the interactions. But Saul has always been a cool, calm customer. The things he dealt with in the interaction with Rome, because Rome questionably did not handle that situation the greatest when trying to stop Soul from finding an idol back at the old Lavo days. And Soul dealt with some serious babysitting in a way that other people hadn't before, where I said, Saul's better than me. I maybe would punch Rome. And he didn't. So that speaks to the man that he is. He kept it under control entirely, and he's continued to. And now he's prospering. He found an advantage, and he utilized it in a way to save Rachel, someone who was in extreme danger. So really, he's like a hero. He's like a Superman, a super Saul. And I love that. And if there was a favorite person to have in the game, it's probably Saul. Do I think he's the best position to win? No. Do I hope he wins? Heck yeah. I think that'd be great. I would love him and a few other people to be in the top tier of winning the game at this point. But the game is long, and it looks like, this round with him saving Rachel, it gives him options. Does he tell Rachel? Does he get a new friend in Rachel? Rachel certainly needs friends. And maybe that changes the board for Soul moving forward to where he does get that W. And I hope he does. Because no matter what, when he leaves the game, he's another one who I'm sure is going to say, like, hey, I've got a happy life. I'm going to feel good at the end of this. But he's got all the traits in the world. He's great with people. He's a strong dude. He's a good looking guy. And, I think only good is ahead for this band. And lastly, Sierra. I like talking about Sierra because Sierra is roughly in the Philadelphia area, which is where I'm from. So when I hear her speak, I hear like the Philly girl accent, which is kind of funny to some degree. I think, obviously brilliantly strong, smart, beautiful. She's linked up with the right people. She seems to have a good read on the game. Has she been the shot caller up to this point? Not really. It sounds like her and Sam have a good partnership, but it sounds like Sam's kind of one up at to this point. Maybe that'll change in the future because I think Sierra has a role to play in the game moving forward. I think her chances of getting to the end are pretty solid, actually. I think she's going to have a lot of people that are going to be vying for her vote, especially if Sam ends up taking a bullet for her. And that's one of the biggest things. Her relationship with Sam is really beneficial because he does have good reads on the game, but he's the guy riding on the white horse. The general riding on the white horse gets shot at first. So that's something good for Sierra in the end, and I'm sure she knows that. And she seems to be really fun, have a good personality, and I just love the representation that she's given to the game for my area of the country, which is great. And I think there's only good things ahead, so I can only say really positive. And by the way, it's bullshit when fans were coming at her for being like a woman hater or something like that. I never understand that stuff. I'm always happy to tell people they're being ridiculous. But ultimately, I think she's been pretty awesome, and I can only say just lovely things. Okay, I know that was a mouthful, but boy, I was really happy to be able to share some of this with all of you. I love these folks, this cast. It's important to remember that everybody on this season is cast for a reason. And Probst doesn't go out of their way to look for villains. So it's not because these are bad people. They're not predisposed to doing jerkish things. I think the game sometimes puts them in situations where it's framed to not always be the greatest thing in the world. But ultimately, they have so many positive traits. And I wanted to take some time. And talk about these really lovely things that I see in these people because they seem really talented. And hopefully one day I'll get to talk to them and learn more about some other lovely things that happens for them and to them outside of the game, which would be great that I can share. Otherwise, that's going to do it. Hope you have an amazing day, everyone. You take care. Goodbye.